Job Sikhala, a Zimbabwean opposition activist, dared to speak truth to power. His words, sharp and direct, criticized the government's actions. He called for change, for justice, for a better Zimbabwe. The government's reaction was swift and brutal. Sikhala was arrested, charged with inciting violence. His voice, once loud and defiant, was silenced behind bars. His story is not unique. It is a story repeated across Zimbabwe, a country grappling with the heavy hand of oppression. Sikhala's arrest sent shockwaves through the nation. His supporters, many of whom saw him as a beacon of hope, were left reeling. His detention, many argued, was a blatant attempt to stifle dissent. The charges against him, they claimed, were fabricated, designed to silence a troublesome voice. His case brought into sharp focus the challenges faced by opposition activists in Zimbabwe. It highlighted the government's willingness to use its power to crush dissent. Sikhala's ordeal is a stark reminder of the fragility of freedom in Zimbabwe. It underscores the risks that activists take when they dare to challenge the status quo. Their voices, often the only ones speaking out against injustice, are constantly under threat. Their courage in the face of such adversity is a testament to their unwavering belief in a better future for Zimbabwe. Their struggle is a fight for the very soul of their nation. The persecution of Job Sikhala is not an isolated incident. It is part of a broader pattern of government repression in Zimbabwe. For years, the ruling party has used its power to silence critics and maintain its grip on power. Opposition figures have been harassed, intimidated, and even physically assaulted. Their rallies have been disrupted, their offices raided, their members arrested. The government's tactics have had a chilling effect on freedom of speech in Zimbabwe. Many people are afraid to speak out, fearing the consequences of their actions. Journalists practice self-censorship, careful not to cross the line. Activists operate under constant threat, knowing that their work could land them in trouble. The space for dissent has shrunk, leaving many feeling voiceless and powerless. The government's actions have drawn condemnation from international human rights groups. They have accused the Zimbabwean government of violating its citizens' fundamental freedoms. They have called for the release of political prisoners and an end to the harassment of opposition figures. Their pleas, however, have largely gone unheeded. The Zimbabwean government remains defiant, determined to maintain its control at all costs. The consequences of government repression are far-reaching. It erodes trust in institutions, breeds fear and resentment, and stifles progress. When people are afraid to speak their minds, society suffers. Innovation is stifled, creativity is crushed, and critical thinking is suppressed. The cost of silence is high, both for individuals and for the nation as a whole. Zimbabwe's economic woes are inextricably linked to its political problems. Investors are wary of pouring money into a country where the rule of law is weak and human rights are violated. Tourists are hesitant to visit a place where political instability is rife. The government's actions have not only damaged Zimbabwe's reputation, but also hampered its economic growth. The situation in Zimbabwe is a cautionary tale for other countries. It shows how easily power can be abused and how quickly freedoms can be eroded. It highlights the importance of safeguarding democratic institutions and upholding the rule of law. It underscores the need for a vigilant citizenry that is willing to hold its leaders accountable. Section 4. A global struggle. The struggle for freedom of speech is not confined to Zimbabwe. It is a global battle playing out in different forms across the world. From Russia to China, from Turkey to Venezuela, governments are cracking down on dissent, silencing critics, and tightening their grip on power. The tools of repression may vary, but the goal remains the same: to control the narrative and stifle opposition. The rise of social media has added a new dimension to this struggle. Governments are increasingly using online platforms to spread propaganda, monitor dissent, and harass critics. They are employing sophisticated surveillance technologies to track citizens' online activities. They are enacting laws that criminalize online speech that is deemed critical of the government. The internet, once hailed as a tool of liberation, is being transformed into a tool of control. Despite these challenges, there is hope. Across the globe, activists, journalists, and ordinary citizens are fighting back against repression. They are using technology to circumvent censorship, organize protests, and share information. They are forming networks of solidarity, supporting each other in the face of adversity. They are reminding the world that the fight for freedom of speech is a fight worth fighting. Section 5. Hope's Embers. The fight for justice in Zimbabwe is far from over. Job Sikhala's case and countless others like it serve as a stark reminder of the challenges that lie ahead. But even in the face of oppression, hope endures. The spirit of resistance remains strong, fueled by the belief that a better future is possible. The voices of dissent may be muted, but they are not silenced. The international community has a role to play in supporting the struggle for freedom in Zimbabwe. By shining a light on human rights abuses, by pressuring the government to respect its citizens' fundamental freedoms, by providing support to activists and civil society organizations, the world can help to tip the scales in favor of justice. The future of Zimbabwe hangs in the balance. The path forward will be fraught with challenges, but the pursuit of justice must continue. The hope for a Zimbabwe where freedom of speech is respected, where dissent is tolerated, and where all citizens have a voice in shaping their destiny remains alive. The struggle for a better tomorrow continues.